But today, more importantly and more urgently, we got a great session on product promotion. And for today's session, Holly Jewell from NCR has brought together a cast of some of the leading women and product thinkers in our product coffee community to talk through the notion of product promotion and building awareness around your product. So as we're starting that conversation, you might want to jump over to productcoffee.com/resources. There's some additional notes about today's session. And most importantly, there's a link for a notes document, or you can go to productcoffee.com/notes. And this is a Google Doc that we work on collaboratively. That's kind of part of our tradition here at Product Coffee, is we take notes together in a Google Doc. As you hear an insight or have a question or a thought that you want to capture it in this joint notes document, save it off to your own Google Drive, and it'll be part of the record of the show for everyone going forward. And you can save that link for another time in the future. So with that being said, I'm going to shut up and hand the mic over to Holly to lead our roundtable discussion on product promotion and awareness. Thank you, Holly. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm always terrified when you actually hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we're good.
Not a problem I'm familiar with, is it, George? I'm Holly Jewell. If we haven't met yet, you may be enjoying that brief period until that changes. But I have the pride, the pain, the privilege of leading product management for global sales operations at NCR, which is National Cash Register Corporation, in case you were wondering. But it's been a while since we really were deeply involved with cash registers, but you will see our logo pretty much on every self-checkout, point of sale system, ATM machine. It's just some fun things we do, as well as carbon paper. If you've ever used the triple carbon paper, that's our patent. You're welcome. I will take one moment to point out that I booked this conference room, and I'm not implicating George, but if you know me, you know I love a dad joke. I was totally born to the wrong gender for that reason. But someone has drawn a cow on this board in this room and has put, what do you call a cow with no legs? And then it says, check the top corner. The top corner says ground beef, which as a vegetarian, I find to be a great joke. And it's almost like someone did this on purpose. There you go. There's my opening today. So I would like to introduce some actually amazing women from a product perspective. Joining me today, we'll have Joey, who I will just call Joey. I will not attempt the vendorness because that would get bad being from Texas. So Joey, you've kind of already introduced yourself. Do you want to add anything more or let me?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share that in a previous life before starting with At Properties, which was this year, I was part of Peanut, which was acquired by Equifax. And so I'm just starting this new journey into real estate, but primarily was in the financial services type space.
Very awesome. I suppose my background is from banking and financial as well. So it kind of probably connects to NCR, but just in case anyone wasn't clear on that. And Jackie is with us as well. Jackie Flake, the amazing product strategy and agile transformation consultant. Already also kind of introduced yourself, but would you like to add more?
I guess the only other background I can give is I have built a lot of products across a lot of industries. So I've built a lot of stuff the wrong way.
Love it. And I appreciate so much that we can be real with ourselves and admit that. And on that front, I have asked my new dear friend, Kate, to join us. The UI and UX organization here at NCR recently joined my group, my team. And I am thrilled to have Kate here as a UI UX design expert. I don't know why I'm pointing to the cow on camera. Kate is actually right off here to the side in the same room with me. You guys just can't make that connection, but promise not pointing to the cow. But as a, I don't want to use the word victim of when product management gets it wrong, because that gets into the whole victimization of our society. But as a passionate bystander, she can, I think, give us some unique insights on what happens when we maybe miss something from a product launch perspective, or miss out on capturing some customer needs, requirements that lead to scope. And then we are behind, maybe we're having an adoption problem on a customer rollout. We're not able to go at the rate we want to go because things are different than what we thought when we made these commitments. Awesome. So to that topic, right? So we know we have a product, right? And it's an awesome product. I'm sure you've got a product and it's an amazing product. I believe in you. Your mom believes in you, right? Your product's amazing. Assuming that you didn't fall into one of the other sessions that we like to talk about. And everyone who knows me knows I'm passionate about did you do the Field of Dreams? Did you build something just because it sounded cool to you and there's not really a problem for it, but you're like, oh, we'll find a problem for it. It's fine. It'll happen later. Build it and it'll come. But assuming you didn't do that, you have an amazing product, right? It's a key thing, not to be simplistic, but to get product traction. But so you've got this amazing product, and now how to get people to use it, right? A lot of that comes down to nailing your product launch, also a ginormous, topic, multi-sessions for a later day, right? But pre-planning, nailing that product launch, all of that is key. But what are some other ways that we, think about what changed the picture, right? How do we drive a successful conversion rate? How do we increase reach? We all know there's a million trite sayings, right? About you got to have a great product and happy customers buy more, right? We've all heard that one. Minimize the friction, make customers your regulars, increase customer loyalty. CSAT is the answer to everything, in case anyone's wondering. Sure they're listening right now, but my C-suite definitely thinks that customer satisfaction is the key to all world hunger and issues in the world. But with that, I'm going to pop over and let Joey go first because she's super shy. So if we don't let her talk first, she may not open up.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So there are two particular scenarios that come to mind when it comes to making sure that products or any sort of change in maybe a product is successful, and kind of like one that went well and one that didn't, to share. So the one that went well, what it was is it was as part of the acquisition, there was a bunch of transition that needed to happen, right? It's part of that work. And what we did a really good job of with coordinating was between the different teams kind of involved. So we have, the people that are actually talking with all the different customers and the ones building those relationships and helping them with the products. And then you have the people kind of doing the analysis of making sure that everything's okay as we change over from one thing to another. And then there's kind of like the IT team and like handling all the actual work that needs to happen to make all those wonderful things, fly well. And we really sat down and talked through the entire end-to-end of how do we make sure that the customers are aware, what do customers need in order to feel good about this change? Like, what are the details that maybe we want to be able to provide them? How much hand-holding are we going to do? And what does that look like per customer? What are the big ones that, if that doesn't go well, we need to think about, what we do in case, because we can't maintain two systems for so long, and we really talked through all that together, and it was given to the customers way ahead of time before the change happened. Hey, this is our plan. This is what we're looking to do, and like communicated that to them. Right. And then as things were going forward and we had all the data in place and they could do some analysis, then we had overall analysis done. And then for specific customers, we did their individual analysis to be like, okay, so these are the changes you're going to see here. And in the cases where they have maybe their own team to kind of do some work, we had a system set up so that we had what it exists now versus what the future is for them to be able to do a compare themselves and do their own type of work. And by having that kind of coordination of what is the plan, putting all the pieces together so that that could all go smoothly, meant that we didn't lose anybody. And considering it was probably over, 300 customers, that's a pretty good deal that worked out. We'll see how the rest of it goes, but good luck, Equifax.
I want to jump in and point out, like, to that point, right? And this was the success, right? I think, capturing what perhaps were some of the keys to that, right? Kind of back to that, minimize friction point. It sounds like you guys did a really good job of both maybe decreasing the attachment to the status quo, right? But really also addressing that fear, that uncertainty of change. I think that is a huge thing when you talk about product adoption, especially when it's a move from an old to a new, right? And we all, I think, forget that. I've certainly been guilty of forgetting that before, that even if your product's brand new to the market, right? The problem for your customer probably isn't. They probably didn't just start having this problem the same day your product launched, right? So they've had the problem the whole time. They've been dealing with it somehow, even if that's doing nothing. And so even to get them to move to a brand new solution, you're asking them to change something. And so you've got to break that attachment to the status quo, either by really pointing out the flaws in their current state, playing those up can be a tactic, right? But also like really minimizing that friction and addressing that uncertainty and making it as smooth and painless to move to whatever the new thing is, whether it's platform to platform, release shift, upgrade, or implementing a new solution. So I really like it. Sound like you really like honed in on that. And that was specifically how you really attacked it to make it seamless for them.
Yeah. And I will say like the financial services space, they're allergic to change, right? Like they hate. So the fact that we were really in their shoes of like, hey, we understand, and we're going to try to make this as clear as possible what these different changes are, what maybe little tweaks that you might need to do, but we really looked to minimize all that as much as possible. And we were very clear and upfront about that. Like, hey, we get it. We don't want to, no one wants to move the cheese. No one wants to upset the apple cart. We're all trying to get this done. But at the end of the day, like we got to move. So, yeah.
And back to your point, and I think it was 2016, the National ACH Association and the group that manages all the rules around and regulations around direct deposits came out and said that fax was the most secure way to communicate and do authentications. So, there you go. Yeah, resistant to change.
LOL.
Yeah, lots of much well, right?
Yeah. Nice one.
Awesome.
All right. Should I go into the failure now or should we talk failure later?
Why don't we talk through successes and then jump to failure? Team, I think that's a great segue. So I will ping Jackie. Do you want to share a success?
Sure.
Get you in before you have to bounce.
Yeah, I do have to jump on a flight. Okay, so let's see. My success story. Well, okay, it's kind of twofold. So let me explain. Back in 2010. Okay. Back in 2010, I was working for Vitru, a little startup that partnered with Facebook. Okay, cool, Jason. Yeah. And so this is back when brands were just getting onto Facebook. I mean, Facebook might have still required a college email. I don't know. It was kind of that transition of time. So I felt like I worked for a really cool, sexy startup, doing product for Facebook via Vitru. Anyway, one of our clients or our customers was Procter & Gamble. They were launching a contest to where essentially we put a countdown timer on the Facebook page. And the idea was when the countdown timer expired, people could come to the Facebook page, fill out a form, and be entered into a contest to win free Tide for a year. So very straightforward, very simple. Well, this, in terms of product adoption, this went so well. It was promoted and advertised and paid media campaigns behind it so well that so many people came to the Facebook page at the time when the countdown timer expired. It crashed. No one could enter the contest. And I was on the phone with P&G leaders, like high executives at like midnight on a Monday night, learning all about like crisis control, how to bounce back when someone screws up. Essentially what had happened, we didn't.
Did someone trip over the server cord? Because that's always what I get told.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Infrastructure team didn't do enough load testing is what I was told. I think what happened is we didn't anticipate the amount of promotion to go so well. And actually, I use this example. I do a lot of Agile trainings, and I use this example when I talk about the Agile Manifesto values. And one of them is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And like how I tie that together with this example is, in that contract with P&G, obviously we're going to launch this contest on this day, and it's going to, support this many users. Well, that was all blown out of the water when, this big flub happened. So that's kind of an example of it going really well and also not going well at the same time. So
well, it sounds like, just to grab a couple things out of that story, right, which is an awesome story. The success, right? Your reach with the messaging worked, right? You've got two people. So that's always a big thing, right? Identifying your customers, identifying who you're going to engage with, right? As part of your product launch. And
Right.
I will hand to God admit that I have failed at that before, and not done a good job just being like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to communicate to the market and the customers. And it's like, basically just a cow over here in the field. Maybe that's why the team drew a cow. And I haven't really pinned down the exact who, that's getting this brilliantly targeted messaging that I've come up with, obviously.
That's right.
So I did that part, but so you got to the right people, but then also, and I love this tactic. Maybe it's just the inner cheapskate in me that loves a free thing, but I think like a free something is a way to get people, right? If you're in software, like a free trial, a free version, a free something, right? Just, saying Product Coffee, there's a free community, and then there's one that's not free. That's way more awesome. So just an example of, hey, we're all here, and some of us are more here than others, and we're obviously better. So, there's a way to promote your product within by getting the adoption, by offering that free component, right? So
Yep.
I think that really kind of helped draw in those people, because I was listening, I'm like waiting for you to tell me the site if this was still ongoing so I could get my free Tide, because I do a lot of laundry.
And for a year, people love free shit, and then you get free laundry detergent for a year. And
That's
this
like
is back in
$500
2010,
at
and it was
least.
more affordable.
Right, that's at least like, a couple, gotta be $500. Like it's $20 worth of internet. I won't digress into how much Tide costs. I will not win that TV show, but I have some ideas. All right. I am going to bounce the ball over to Kate.
Well, hey guys, sorry I joined late. I was actually on a customer call. I was in product management for a hot second before transitioning into product design and discovery with a user experience focus. So I have built everything from your first round app with the kids in college to now enterprise level applications. So I've seen a lot of different things. In terms of successful projects, the most successful projects that we see are the ones where ample time has been given to asking why and trying to dig to the surface. Below the surface, I think one of the biggest mistakes you see in contrast is that it's really difficult to come in with a preconceived notion of a product and what the market need is and not test it. And a lot of people think that testing is extensive and maybe we can't afford it, or my customer doesn't want to do it. There are so many simple little ways you can do customer testing. You can do kamikaze testing outside of a place of business where your product might be used with a clipboard. Sometimes you get run off by security, but it's very effective. We actually worked with some college kids who just kind of had the audacity and no funding, and they went and they actually ended up building a very successful app, and one of their founders was on Forbes 30 Under 30.
Nice.
And they just bootstrapped it all the way. But what made them different was they, from the beginning, tried to find the problem, find the pain, instead of coming in with a product that they thought would solve the issue. And I know that that is the basics of creating a product, but that is the thing that gets missed the most. And that's what separates the clients I've seen who fail and the clients I see who are terribly successful, is typically how willing they are to engage with the business.
And I love that example, and it was sounds like a small, bootstrap, you said, right, group of, we also said affectionately kids, right?
They were college kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. But they got it right. Like you said, like in your opening, like when we don't spend enough time on the why, right? I know I'm not the only one here that's like passionate about that. And if you know me and any of my rants about where I work, it's that we don't do that, right? We do a lot of, and it can happen at any level, whether it's a small group or at a huge 130-something-year-old company where we decide that we know best, right? We're the parents. We've been here longer than you, and we know what you need. So this is a coffee mug. You don't drink coffee, but you're darn gonna need one. So buy 20, right? That example perhaps, but because everyone needs a product coffee mug, to be clear. But it's when you don't go through that discovery process, right? And so any way that you can do it. And I also love the testing, and I'm really curious about delving into what you meant by kamikaze.
There are a lot of ways to do testing kamikaze. One of the biggest things I hear from product team members is, okay, this is a future product, so we don't have customers who are currently interested. And then the sales pipeline, they tell me we don't want to bring this to our current sales team. the sales team doesn't want to bring it in front of the customer because it's a new product offering and they're trying to sell them on the current product offering. So they don't want to highlight what's bad about the current product with these customers.
So wait,
That
why did we build
pipeline-
this?
Right, yeah. So it's really easy. There's a lot of really good sites that don't cost a lot for usability testing where you can go and find pretty specific individuals and it's not super expensive to run the test. When you're looking at sort of just validating experiences and things like that, you can do 6 people and get a much clearer direction. It's not statistically significant, but we found that it's enough to get you there. And so you can get to the point where you can afford the statistically significant test. So things like usability testing, like I said, being outside of a Staples because your solution is going to be around office goods, and therefore you're just kind of like going up to people and asking them, hey, if we have this kind of product, you know, what do you think you guys would use it for? Is there any pain in your process at work that we can help you solve? It's really all of those sorts of things. And it takes time. It's not easy and you have to build it into your sprints, but it's
Planning on the
really
time
makes a
for it,
difference.
It sounds key. I'll also throw into your, I love the like staying outside like the Staples or the Publix or whatever, but you know, if you're at a company that does events, right, or sponsors a thing, you know, we had kind of an aha moment, you know, here talking about the Peachtree Road Race. And it's like, well, NCR was a sponsor, right? For those in Atlanta, it's this little thing where people run around the city like stupid in the heat on the 4th of July. Anyway, we digress. But we sponsor, we have a big tent, we have an expo, right? It's like, why didn't we use this opportunity to put our products in front of consumers and say, hey, can you test this out? When are you in a giveaway to win a thing, right? Or do a thing or whatever. You're here anyway. So, you know, what the heck? But, you know, there's all kinds of opportunities I think that we often miss because we just don't think about it that way. And so if there's a place that you're going to be, and especially if your company's already like throwing money into it, maybe it's a great opportunity with some, you know, captured audience to get some feedback from them by exposing them to this newest thing, or at least, you know, having a discussion about it. It doesn't have to be super formal. You may not have something they can actually put their hands on, like, hey, can you test out this latest self-checkout for me? Here's a fake apple and a banana, go. But you could, you know, do something, right? So I love it.
Want to ask me to swipe my card? I'm good.
Oh, I will definitely make sure to ask you to swipe your card. Don't worry, Manesh. Maybe some fake coupons just to see how that works out too. Awesome. So I'm gonna circle us back around. That was all we talked about the good, right? So I think there's also a, you know, not to fall into the trap of movie titles. If you know me, everything's a quote or a musical clip. So I apologize in advance, but there's the good, bad, and the ugly is all I can think about right now. So we talked about the good. So I think it's time to circle back and talk about the bad. So Joey, do you want to queue up and take that first?
Yeah, sure. I can go over that. Number one. Yeah. So it definitely hones in on one of the goods we've talked about. Now we had a desire to break into a different industry, adding that into the scope of what we were delivering. Specifically, it was real estate at the time. So looking from a financial services aspect, how do you consider real estate in order to help people make financial decisions? When that was done, it probably wasn't necessarily the best quality data that we got. Probably just like, but we made a product out of what we were given and added it into an existing product suite. Now, the idea of this had generated from the CEO talking to customers. And that is how it continued to be kind of presented, was that the CEO was bringing it up to customers specifically. And then I was really proud. We did it very agile. We got it through like in 2-3 months. It was great. And we had it there. And I noticed that with maybe marketing didn't get it as much out there in front of the people that it mattered to very much. Maybe the CEO and the customers weren't actually aligned as far as what was delivered. And so month after month, we see very little adoption of the product. So that is the failure. Was a fine product. We made the best out of what we had. And didn't really jive with the customers. It didn't explode like maybe they were expecting it to based on whatever feedback he had gotten.
So do you think the problem there was not delving into that enough, kind of like what Kate was just talking about, like not asking the whys enough, not really doing a good, I hate to say good job because I'm not trying to be mean or critical, but like not getting deep enough into that discovery or getting good feedback. It's easy sometimes, I think, to be in the echo chamber as a product manager, and like you kind of have your go-tos you vet things with in your customer base. I know I've been guilty of that. And then at the end of the day, you build this amazing banking experience that really is exactly what SunTrust wants and isn't necessarily what anyone else wants.
Yeah, I think that was really the key, was really trying to understand what specifically would be helpful for those people to make those decisions. What data specifically are they looking for in that space that might be helpful? What kind of format does it need to be in for them to easily digest it, to bring it forward? These were kind of conversations that didn't happen with customers really involved with product. There was a lot of CEO talking with customers, not a lot of involvement from other expertise, like from the UX experience or from product experience. So
I love
right,
that.
It's a very different audience, right?
I love that call, and Allison, your comment in the chat about being open to the additional discovery research, right? So it can be open to in terms of funding and the timeline, like Kate was hitting on, but also open to because they're, I don't know, having that Steve Jobs, like I'm doing this by myself kind of moment, right? And they're like driving all of it. They're not just embedded in the middle of it sometimes, but almost keeping everyone else ancillary and outside the conversation. So I've struggled with that at times too, where it's like you're playing the game of telephone, or, as I, probably throw temper tantrums about when I've said it this way, but, not being allowed to do my own job, right? It's very frustrating. Like you hired me to do a thing, but you're doing that thing and you're not letting me do that thing. So if you don't want me to do that thing, that's fine, but I'll go somewhere else and do that thing. You can just have fun on your own. But that can be, really frustrating for sure.
Yeah, and Allison, it is true. There was no additional discovery or research allowed, and whatever information that was kind of given was given freely, not necessarily
I've had that
executed
same
on.
experience kind of happen where it was like, I've made this up, this is what we're doing, and now please go do the thing. And doing the thing does not mean you get to go ask other people if that's really true or reflective of what they need, all of those lovely things that you were outlining. So I think it's unfortunate that CEOs fall in that space, or C-suite folks fall in that space from time to time, but if they're chasing an idea, whether it be their own or someone planted for them, it's a risk that we take in helping them along in the process.
Yeah. And I will tag into that to say, I think there's and this is probably another whole session topic, but an interesting perspective from that C-suite level, right? As to what makes the difference when you hear that message and when you don't, right? I've had that situation, like I was just ranting about, and where it didn't go well, right? But I've also had that where it went really well. Excuse me, I'm trying not to sneeze. In my former career at Pfizer with the CTO, and he literally called it the Blue Sky Project. I found out about it even though I was the portfolio product leader, when half of my dev team and solution architects told me they were diverted to work on the Blue Sky Project and not, the product offering that we committed was going to make $30 million. Not that. That's fine. It's all good. It's not like when some of us need to make P&L numbers or we literally lose our job, it's all good. But so I had to go have a head-to-head with him and be like, hey, Brian, what's up? What gives? And he explained to me in classic Steve Jobs style. The man always wore a turtleneck, by the way, so it really was applicable to call him that. He was being really hard, but he explained how cool his idea was. And I said, that's awesome. Who's it for? And we had like the best, and I let it sit there. It was the best, like 90 seconds of just awkward staring at each other. He was like, that's a good question, but we're going to figure that out. Like, I'd love to get some time on your calendar to whiteboard that. And I said, what problems is it going to solve? And he couldn't answer that either, but assured me we would find them. So that's why I make that joke all the time about finding the problems for the product, because that was literally the CTO. Brilliant idea. We'll find them. I'm sure there's lots of them. So sometimes it happens to really smart, really good people. Brian's a friend. I wouldn't tell the story if I didn't know. He would just laugh about it. But when you point it out to them, sometimes they can hear it, right? So coming out of that conversation, he was like, you're right. This may be a really cool idea. But until we can do those things, right? Until we have identified the problems, until we know what the market is, and you've had a chance to size the market, we know what the dollars would be, and then you get to compare those dollars against what was already on the roadmap, right? And decide which is better monetarily to pursue. We should not do this thing. And he himself sunset his own project idea and pulled it off the portal, right? The plan. Sometimes they can hear us. It was just, have to, I think, for me, it was an aha moment of being brave enough to have that conversation. At the time, I probably was less brave, if I'm being honest. I was probably just so mad. I did not flip and care how this conversation went. I was like, security could have escorted me out. I was having this conversation one way or another. But obviously, I don't advocate that. But if you're mindful and you go in, and at least in the conversation, you're calm. Like, I was so angry. I think I was deadly calm. And I think that's what unnerved him. But if you have your facts and you present the things, right, and you bring up the but the roadmap is for this many customers, the roadmap is these dollars, maybe you can change that perspective of why they think their thing is so important.
We also will cheat that mentality sometimes. I mean, I'm very lucky. We're now an enterprise company. I have a lot more resources than I used to have. But if you do have access to somebody on the design side or even yourself, sometimes you can spin up a really quick prototype and then take it to existing customers and get some quotes from them and then bring it back to C-suite and say, actually, I know you want to invest a lot of money in this, but it's kind of failing with the customer base, and it doesn't take. I think we had a project like that we were trying to kill, and I think we spent 3 days just trying, 3 days for theoretically, let's just run with this. We mocked it up as fast as we can. We even, for the initial customer research we had a call with the customer, and all we had was sketches. And they were bad sketches because they were done by product teams and non-designers initially. And that's all we had to show the customer. But we explained the concept and showed those sketches. And not because the sketches were bad.
Are you sure?
It was not, no, it was enough of a concept. It's that fail fast mentality where they were like, why, that's cool, but we wouldn't pay for that, or what's so much better about that than what we currently have. So I think sometimes having the customer as your advocate can be very helpful. As long as you don't make your company look stupid. Obviously there's ways to do it and protect yourself there, but
that's a great point, because if they don't listen to you, right, it is hard to combat we did do some level of market validation, right? And unless you're saying this product is not for that market, then tell us who it's for. We'll go identify them and test with them. But here's how it played out. It's hard then for them to say, I'm going to invest all this money and do a thing, because then they have to own, I think, at some point, that I'm doing it just because I think it's cool. And nobody wants to say that, right? You don't want that to be true. You want to be brilliant and create the next iPhone. Which arguably,
well, you also don't have to test the product, and that's a key. That's a key thing, because the product may not be the product. You're testing a thing that doesn't exist. Why not test the assumptions that make that thing work or agreeable or palatable?
Yeah. Yes, and I think probably one of the worst case scenarios I've seen is where we wanted to validate an idea. And we drew up this beautiful, research plan. Again, it took us 2 days, and we brought it to the customer, and then we took all of that feedback. And then on the flip side, we brought that to the team. None of that was implemented in MVP. It was all marked for phase 3, not important. And then what happened was we came back to the customer gets the product. They're like, okay, well, you came to me to ask for input. None of this is in here when I'm getting it. Oh, it's okay. You'll get it in a year and a half.
yeah,
So it
doesn't play well, does it?
doesn't play well. And then for us, it actually ruined a relationship with a customer who before had been a really big advocate for us, had introduced us to other clients. And they didn't want to, even though they were still using our software, it didn't push them all the way away. They no longer were an advocate for us, and they no longer were a sounding board. Before that, we've been able to go to them for the kamikaze research and for quick techniques, and they let us talk to their in-store managers and give us some of their people's time for research. and all of that went away because of that.
Wah, wah. That is very, so that's where the victim comes in, right? The product manager, it sounds like, did a terrible job of prioritization and they took away your toys, and that's terrible. I'm so sorry. And Jackie, I know you're about to have to bounce, but any quick thing you want to jump in on here?
Sure. Couple quick things. To the points that y'all were just talking about, I do so much education at the leadership level around this is not automagical what we're building, and this is how we do it. So keep that in mind. You know, it's really good to educate leadership on what product is, because we're in it every day. So we don't think that, you know, leaders don't understand what we're doing and why. But two quick examples of, I guess, product adoption not going well. Here's another historical startup for you, Jason. Blink Media. Anybody remember that company? Okay, sweet. So after Victor, I moved to Blink Media, which was another Facebook partner. And we built a Facebook advertising solution. All the salespeople were, you know, millennial, young, whatever. It was going well. Well, Gannett company acquired us. They're a big media company. And so now we were forced to, or, you know, Gannett was supposed to now sell our product to their customers. Well, the salespeople are used to selling television spots and, you know, print newspaper. They weren't used to selling social media and this new thing called Facebook advertising. So, you know, on top of being the product manager for this product, I had to go out and educate salespeople who had sold TV for 30 years of their career. So guess what? That didn't go very well. Gannett was not able to sell that product, and now Blink Media no longer exists. Hopefully that's not my fault.
Totally is.
All right. And then my other quick example is a couple of years ago, built a mobile app for a healthcare company. And so what they do is they have pediatric home health nurses. So they would send nurses out to children's homes that had chronic and terminal illnesses. And so these nurses would take care of these kids every day at home in the kids' homes. So in order to schedule these nurses at the patients' homes, you had a scheduling team, and they would just kind of go through a list and call nurses and be like, hey, can you go to Bobby's home on this day? So very manual, very paper heavy. So of course, in the modern world, we're going to try to automate as much as we can and get it onto a mobile app. So we built these nurses a scheduling app that they could access on their phone. But what we learned after we launched it is that a subset of these nurses, mostly of kind of the older generation, kind of toward the latter end of their career, there was no adoption with that group. And it wasn't because it was a mobile app, because they had phones for several years. They were used to using apps, used to texting and everything. It was more so that they liked talking to the schedulers on the phone. Because if you think about it, these nurses are in a very isolating job. They're in a patient's home one-on-one with a child all day long. They have no connection to their corporate headquarters or their company that they work for outside of talking to these schedulers who would call them every week to help schedule their shifts. So the product adoption in that subset of users, very little uptake. And so to Kate's point, we didn't do our user research in the best way. And we learned that after the fact, and we probably could have altered kind of how we deliver the product to that subset of users. And so at the end of the day, what we ended up doing was we built kind of a CRM-ish feature to where they could still call their schedulers through the app and all of this. But it was an interesting learning on my part.
Yeah, I love that. And I put it in the chat, but yeah, exactly. It sounds like the problem that blocked it, right? A lot of times we think we know, right? And it's not what you think it is. And obviously, to your point, you know, maybe better discover and research and everything up front could have identified it. But also, I think we always have to own that we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes, right? We talked about all the bads and the uglies, you know. So it's going to happen, and it's going to happen to good product managers, ultimately at the end of the day, I think. But being able to identify and get to what's really the issue. Once you know there's an issue, right? You're seeing that lagging adoption, and pivoting, to your point, like being able to do that and pivot fast, I think is also key, right? I think a lot of people, and maybe not the product manager level alone, but really the company struggle with, people just want to bang on about it, right? They just want you to keep pushing, just push, just do a thing, right? And aren't willing to say, you know, we need to dive into what's causing people to not want to do the thing we want them to do, right? And then drive a new thing around changing that.
Yeah, right. And we kind of forgot to think about the human side of work in those scenarios. And that's where we, missed. So just remember, like, Agile is always humanizing work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when you talk about like pointing out flaws in the current state, like in the discovery process, that would be something that would be, to that user base, not a flaw, right? To them, it was that human connection, to your point, was everything, right? So it was like, hey, we're going to build this app and it's going to automate this, or he's going to take this off so you don't have to have that. But to them, that was actually the pro. So it's an interesting one for sure. You have anything to add there, Kate?
Yeah, no, I think all of that just hits right here. I'm just like, oh yes.
Very cathartic conversation for you.
Cathartic, I'm sure for a lot of the people here as well. One of the
I'm having healing moments.
Sorry. One of the main things for me is teams will come and they'll say, hey, we're going to build this thing. Tell me how to build it. And before we hit roadmaps and before we hit dev, I'm working with them and trying to figure out what we're going to do. And the biggest question we always ask is, who is your user? Who is your persona? And they say, it is a manager. Great. Tell me more. What does this manager do? What do you imagine them doing in your software? What problems is it solving for them? It's a basic laundry list checklist, and you can probably look it up. You can go online and say, basic persona starting questions. For some reason, I feel like product management training often just skips that step, and it doesn't take long to do. And you can validate with 1 or 2 phone calls, or sometimes just going online and saying, okay, it's a store manager. Let me research store manager responsibilities on Google.
Right.
Lo and behold,
If nothing
I can't
else.
talk to anybody. Yeah.
Like
and
Toby.
You can find so much information, and then you go to a chat where, some sort of store manager's feed on Reddit where they're all complaining about the pieces of their job that they hate. And even in there, you can find gold on, the problems you're going to get to solve. So.
Absolutely. And, I'm way more old school than you, is hopefully the camera's not showing all the wrinkles in the white hair, but I mean, also LinkedIn, right? You can see who is a store manager based on their LinkedIn profile. And then you could ping that person and try to talk to them about a thing. Be like, hey, so I'm building a solution, or I'm thinking about a thing in your space. Would you be willing to talk? I get pings like that all the time. And surprisingly, fun fact, I actually engage with them because I'm a weirdo that likes to talk to people. So, I have some really random conversations with some really strange people, but it's so much fun, right? And you feel like if you're helping someone build something better for the world, you're doing a good thing with your time. So yeah.
Really good example of that too is I was building for just a project that I was leading. We were doing assistance for food delivery gig workers, and we didn't do any interviews at all. We just went to YouTube and watched videos of people talking about their job with Uber Eats or DoorDash, and also looked at TikToks of people just like a day in the life. All the information was already out there.
Thanks to your generation. Yeah, that's probably true.
Google's amazing. I was working in a team making uniform pants, and we had designs. We're talking about how big the pocket should be and all this crazy stuff. And somebody Googled, pants specifications from OSHA. There will be no pockets on pants for this application. So Google is your friend. Can be your friend if you ask him.
You just may have solved one of my greatest quandaries there, Cortland. I'm going to have to look into this more. My favorite rant in the entire world is, why are there no effing pockets on women's clothes?
Well,
There's
you're
a
not
whole series about that, basically. Donna Noble.
You're not wearing FR gear on an oil rig, so it doesn't quite apply there. But it was interesting to get, like, in rules, the reason why customers don't do X.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we'll have to talk about oil rigs. I've got some great pictures of me on oil rigs. You didn't know and didn't want to.
Fun fact.
There you go.
Texas.
Right. So I think we hit like a lot of really great points here. Joey, I'm going to bounce back to you because I've seen your eyes lighting up and you nodding a lot here. So, I mean, and not that they never they always light up. We can talk about that another time. But would you like to take it away and say something?
Yeah, I did have one other failure, but this is more of a failure kind of after the fact rather than while it's going on. So there was a product that was created. It was a suite of different reports to be able to give manager level information over their entire suite, their entire portfolio. And there was a bunch of different statistics to help them make different decisions or trends for them to look at in order to maybe rethink their strategy, what have you. Great, right? So that let's say I think there are 12 reports, something like that. So we come to a point where we have to redesign for tech reasons, move away. And we find out using some of the stats that we actually baked in, what products with stats, that 6 to 7 of the reports were being used like once a year per like user. And so then like why did we, here I found this data, awesome information, good to know. Why aren't our clients using these? And it turns out that there was a whole group dedicated to supporting these different managers for them to look through these reports and to walk them through the tool and to be kind of their like go-to person if they had any questions. And those people weren't necessarily going through every one of those reports. There was a few key ones because they only have so much time with the clients that they would end up drilling them with so that they were very clear about what they were and the value was clear to the customer, that they didn't actually end up using any of those other reports. And so that gave us an opportunity to kind of get rid of that information, even though it was valuable information, it wasn't being used. So
I love that. I think that's not something that's, often top of mind for me, especially when you talk about like a moving from one platform to another platform or replacing a product with another product, is people fall so guilty to it. And it's often a time thing, right, Kate, where it's like, we just don't have time to really delve into all this and do this discovery on what people are or aren't using or what was or wasn't valuable, right? So we just, whatever the old one had, the new one must have, plus new things so that we can excite people about it, because more is more, right? Obviously.
all of it. Just
Holly,
give them
you
everything.
really don't know how to do math. You're only from accounting, because more is more. It's, when you look at it, and George and I are dealing with one of those now, right? We've got a system. It's like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in that. And it was like, oh, this is table stakes. Well, when are we going to know when the new system can do everything that the old system did? Well, did we know that we need to? Was the thing that old system did, was it even valuable? Also, it's doing a lot of stuff that we defined it needed to do back in 2016. Does that even apply now? I mean, the year is, I don't know what year it is, 2022. So, a lot of the stuff may not be used. It was built for teams that may not exist at this company anymore, quite frankly, with all the reorging we do. So, there's all that kind of, it falls back into the discovery bucket. I realize, I'm being repetitive there, but, it's the chance to redo that along the way, right? And revet does this serve a need, have a purpose, right?
Yeah, just because it is that way doesn't mean it needs to stay that way.
I think that's actually really interesting. Something that I've done a lot of, I won't say a lot. I've done a few like system or product migrations from old systems to new systems. And I actually don't fundamentally change the methodology about when you're scoping a rebuild of an old system or you're building a net new product. Like you should go through the same exact process of, hey, validating assumptions, who is your user, what feature, what's the 80-20, right? What 20% of features are going to have 80% of the value, like all that stuff. Doesn't matter if it exists today or not, for all the reasons you guys just mentioned. The process is fundamentally the same, and you shouldn't take shortcuts.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And I mean, so many points there around all of that just really resonate, right? We fail, that's where we fall down, right? So I think this was cathartic in the sense of, for me, hearing we all fall down, right? Big group hug, right? It happens to good people. But we can do better, right? That's why we have Product Coffee. So we talk about how do we get better? How do we do better? And so I think there was a lot of, great stuff here. I hope that you guys found that helpful. And I know I will go back and listen to the recording to hear what was, deeper, being said there beyond what I just, tried to pull out of the things that people were saying here today. With that, I'm going to throw us back over to Jason to round us out for 3 minutes.
All right. Hey, I want to give a great big thank you to Holly for bringing together this this great discussion, and thank you so much to Johanna, Kate, and Jackie for participating so heavily, and everybody who jumped in. That's the way we. Pardon me, the way we kind of do these roundtables is we like to have a great panel to seed the discussion, but it's not a panel sitting on a stage owning the conversation. I'm really thankful for everyone who participated. I saw there are some great notes over in the notes document. So this was a fantastic session. I also want to welcome once again, thank you for joining us for the first time today, Toby, Kate, Ishani, and Start. Kate, we need some more UX people joining these calls regularly. Bring your friends, come join us. And would love to see you back here again. And with that, we've had a lot of people have had to drop off and run off to their next meeting. This session will be online for our premium members later today. And for everybody else, it'll be out there on the website in about 2 months for you to rewatch if you'd like to. And next week, we'll be back with a session on building content, teaching to accelerate your product management leadership. And that's at productcoffee.com/events, and you can sign up there. So everybody have a great week. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you again to our guests, and we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.